Hello and welcome to my weekly Wednesday video. This is Cinder Shadow, and I've got an interesting deck to go over today with everyone. So I have this out-of-the-box, completely unique deck that I've come across that was done over the weekend. I think it's worth something everyone should take a look at, and it really shows you what happens when you think outside of the box. Okay, well, here is the deck in particular. Main reason why I want to go over this deck is it showed up at a GP and actually took a first place in the Standard Classic at Charlotte. So this was a Star City Games tournament. I found it quite interesting because the main board of this deck has no win con. So it's a very unique deck, something that I've never seen in Standard myself. So I figured we might just go over it. So first off, we start off with, it's got 4 Revitalize. You know, 1 white, 1 generic, gain 3 life, draw a card. We have Search for Encanta. They're only running 1, so likelihood of drawing that early is slim to none. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. You may put that into your graveyard. Then, if you have 7 or more cards, transform it. And when you transform it, it can add blue, or you can tap it for a blue and 2 generic. Look at the top 4 cards and reveal a non-creature, non-land card, which is every other card in this deck. So that's quite interesting in itself. They do have 4 Discovery of Dispersal. This is one of my absolute favorite cards right now. Early game, it lets you look at the top 2 cards, ditch things that you don't need, then you get to draw a card, so it replaces itself. Later game, you can use it as an instant. I really like using this with Mission Briefing to bring it back out of my graveyard for the dispersal part. And it makes your opponent take back their non-land permanent they control with the highest converted mana cost. And then they have to discard a card. So later game, when you're top decking, you just sent their biggest creature back to their hand. This also gets around hexproof because it's each opponent, it's not targeting, and then they end up discarding that card. So something that's very problematic late game gets pulled off the board. They're running 1 Divination in here. Sorcery, draw 2 cards for 3 mana. They're running 4 Gift of Paradise, which is, you know, I can understand needing that, considering this is a 5-color deck. 2 Chance for Glory, so this gives everything that you have indestructible. Then you take an extra turn. At the end of that turn, you lose the game. 3 Settle the Wreckage. If you don't know what this is your instant exile all attacking creatures. Then the controller gets to look for that many basic land cards and put them into play tapped. One thing to note with Settle the Wreckage, if you're playing a multicolored deck, and say you've got a lot of tokens on board or something like that, and you're just not getting your second color, you got to remember, this also works on yourself. So if you need something to filter your mana and say you only have the white mana on board, this will help you turn around and get the other mana that you need. Then they're running 1 Chemster's Insight. It's draw 2 cards with Jumpstart, a blue and 3 generic. So, you know, you get to cast this twice because it goes into the graveyard. And then the card that kind of puts everything together, and that's this Mastermind's Acquisition. 2 black, 2 generic, you choose one or the other, search your library for a card, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Or choose a card you own from outside the game and put it into your hand. So in this case, it's actually going with your sideboard. And without this card, this deck probably would fall apart, I would imagine. Then they're running 3 Vraska's Contempt, 2 black and 2 generic, exile target creature or planeswalker, and you gain 2 life. at instant speed. It pretty much turns something to stone, a card that's been a staple in Standard for quite a while now. Cleansing Nova, you know, if you're running into artifacts and enchantments, this has that secondary use. Other than that, it's a board wipe. Really nice, considering you're not really running creatures in this deck. The Myriada, yeah, Conjecture. 1 blue, 4 generic. This is one of those cards I've seen it used with bounce spells. Return target instant card from your graveyard is the first. The second edition is return target sorcery card from your graveyard. And the third edition of it is until end of turn, cast an instant or sorcery, you copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy. So where they would be using this is probably for the Insight, Vraska's Contempt to get rid of a couple, the Discovery Dispersal, the Revitalize, and then there's also, so they're running 3 of those in there. And then they're also running 3 Lich's Masteries. This is a 3 black, 3 generic, hexproof enchantment. This is one of those enchantments that's a big drawback, but also a big gain. You can't lose the game, so this prevents you from losing the game with the chance of for glory. So you get to take an extra turn, but it says you lose the game, but the enchantment takes precedent because it's on board. So then this cancels that out. Now, the other thing Lich's Mastery is whenever you gain life, draw that many cards. So once again, with the Revitalize, you're not only drawing the 1 card, you would draw 4 cards for 2 mana. And with the Conjecture in there, that may copy it. So then you're now gaining 6 life and drawing 8 cards. So now you're getting to the meat and potatoes of this deck. Whenever you lose a life, for each life you lose, exile a permanent you control, or draw a card from your hand, or card from your hand or graveyard. Now, if this happens to leave the battlefield, you lose the game. So, I believe, I've wondered this myself in the past, with the Master's Mind acquisition. If you happen to lose something that you need that's there, now you can use the Mastermind's acquisition, I believe, to bring that exiled card back, because it's something that's outside of the game. And when it's exiled, it's removed from the game. So I believe that's something that goes in tandem with that. And then the other thing that they're running is 1 expansion explosion. The expansion side is a blue, a red, or 2 blue, 2 red. You copy target instant or sorcery spell with converted mana cost 4 or less. You may choose new targets for the copy. Or the explosion. This is another possibility for a win condition, but it's not really a win con, because you would have to cast this multiple times, and you've only got 1. So it's 2 red, 2 blue, and X. Explosion does X damage to any target. Target player draws X cards. So you choose any target first, and then you can choose yourself to draw cards, or if you're running into a Nexus of Fate scenario, you can force your opponent to draw the Nexus of Fate when they're down to the bare minimum of their deck. I would imagine these games would be quite long with this deck. The fact that it took a first place finish, I think, is worth talking about. Now, into the mana base, obviously in a 5-color controlled deck, the mana base is going to be something that is there. You have 1 Plains, 1 Island, 1 Swamp, 4 Isolated Chapels, and this is the check land for plains or swamps, 1 Drowned Catacomb, another check land for island or swamp, a Watery Grave, island, swamp. Now, so the Drowned Catacomb will check against the Watery Grave. They're actually running 2 Watery Graves, not 1. Then a Steam Vents, so once again the Drowned Catacomb will check the Steam Vents for the island. Sulphur Falls, island or mountain, which once again with the Steam Vents. Dragon Skull Summit, your Swamp Mountain checkland, 3 Overgrown Tombs, that's the black-green, and then a Woodland Cemetery, which once again we'll check the Overgrown Tomb, 1 Sacred Foundry, which is your Pain Land for the Mountain Plains, 2 Sunpetal Grove, checkland for Forest Plains, 3 Temple Garden, which is another Pain Land, 2 Hinterland Harbor, which checkland for Forest and Island, and 1 Gateway Plaza, which will let you do any color. It's just when it comes into play, it comes in tapped, and you have to pay 1 mana. So this is quite an interesting deck. Now, because of the type of deck this is, the sideboard is very key in this deck, because it lets you, once you get to that acquisition, it lets you figure out what you need mid-game to run this game down. So you have 2 Duresses, a Nature's Spiral, which is a very good card. That lets you return a permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. So if there's something in your graveyard that you need, this is going to bring it back. The Duress also is card removal from your opponent's hand. You choose a non-creature, non-land card from it. That player discards that card. I would guess that they were using this more for a sideboard if they went up against a Izzet or a heavy spell deck, and there was something that they needed to take down. Also with Dimir, because you have Thought Eraser and a lot of other cards that you need to get out of those hands. Thief of Sanity. This is a very key card, I would say, for this deck, being 1 black, 1 blue, and a colorless, or a generic now known as. It's flying 2/2. 1 Thief of Sanity deals combat damage to a player. Look at the top 3 cards of that player's library. Exile 1 of them face down, then put the rest into the graveyard. You may look at and cast that card as long as it remains exiled. And you may spend mana as if it was any color. Or though as if it were mana of any type, not just color, any type. Because this says type, this is something that may find a niche in Modern, because this also will let you cast those Eldrazi's, or certain artifacts that require that straight up colorless mana, because this is of any type. Then they also have 1 Deafening Clarion in here, red, white, and generic. It deals 3 damage to each creature. This is, once again, something that you're going to go back in there, grab this, especially if you're up against someone that's a go-wide scenario, like a lot of tokens. 2 Knights of Autumn, green, white, and generic. When it enters the battlefield, you can put 2 1/1 counters on it, destroy target artifact or enchantment, or gain 4 life. So, once again, this is choices. What do you need at that time? A Dawnbringer, if you need to beef up your life really quick, this is the card you want. Or if you need to have that first strike overall damage, this is what's going to do it for you. They're also running 3 Carnage Tyrant in the sideboard here. I would guess this is against a heavy blue deck. You bring this in, and it'll make sure you have something on the board to deal with. They're also running a Immortal Sun. This is another interesting card to have in this deck. If you end up against the Super Friends deck where they're running a ton of Planeswalkers, this is another card you can sub in. Players can't activate Planeswalker loyalty abilities, so it shuts down any Planeswalker that happens to hit the board. You also get, at the beginning of your draw step, you draw an additional card. Also, your spells cost 1 less, and creatures you control get +1/+1. And I would guess it's not in there for the creature control side. And then you have 1 Banefire. The lovely thing with the Banefire also is, with the Mariana's Conjecture, if the copy spell is in play. So now you have the copy spell in play, Then you do the Masterminds acquisition, and it doubles. So now you choose 2 cards you own from outside the game. So now you can say, oh, let's grab a Banefire and something else. Maybe the Nature Spiral, because you want to bring that back and do it all over again. So there, I can see how this made a top place finish. It's something that's out of the box, very different for anything I've ever seen in the game, and it is great to see something like this come out because someone was thinking way outside the box, and I'm guaranteed you it surprised a ton of people. Now looking at my collection here, you can see that I have a lot of red spots here. That's because I took and imported this deck from outside of the game. When you import a deck, it shows you what you're missing. So now it's telling me I need 1 Settle the Wreckage if I want to make this, 2 of the Masterminds Acquisition, a Vraska's Contempt, Cleansing Nova, Mariana's a Conjecture, 2 more Lich's Mastery, 1 Isolated Chapel, 1 Watery Grave, 1 Sacred Foundry, and 1 Temple Garden. So my mana base for this deck actually isn't too far off. I could probably sub this in with other cards that I have. I know I have another Drowned Catacomb. Isolated Chapel, I guess I would run 1 less. Maybe put in a second Swamp, or even a Field of Ruin. Field of Ruin is another card that lets you get around that little bit, and then you can search for the land that you need. Sacred Foundry, there is also the check land that you could put in instead. You could put in another Sun Petal Grove instead of a second Temple Garden. So that's there. The Lich's Mastery is a very key card here because you need to stall the game out to the point that you can get everything else. So when I came across this deck, it was a little bit of a surprise over the weekend. I thought I needed to possibly do the video on it here. So I figured I'd boot it up and give a little bit of a rundown of my thoughts on it. You know, for a deck, for this type of deck, it to me looks pretty impressive of a status. Like, look at that, 26 lands you're running in there, and look how long that list is. That's a lot of different named lands. This is something that I've never seen before. So here's the deck on MTG Goldfish. It's currently sitting at $414 for the paper version of this card. Spending a lot in your lands, obviously, and the few key cards being where it adds up quite quickly. The fact that this took a first place finish is amazing. A really outside the box deck, and this is what deck building really does. If you can understand to build something this crazy and take it into a tournament, know how to play it properly, and be able to take down a first place finish at a standard classic, then I think you're doing well as a Magic player. This is something that's completely outside the box and something I absolutely love to see in the game. Anyway, everyone, it's Halloween. Have a safe and fun night, it being Halloween. Let me know down below what kind of costume you dressed up as. As you can see on myself, I didn't bother dressing up this year. Unfortunately, with things the way they are, it makes it very difficult to find a little bit extra time. I did want to decorate my room a little bit for streaming, but it just didn't happen. If you liked this video, let me know down below. If you didn't like this video, let me know where I can improve. I'm also still looking for patrons. I did have a goal of 5 by the end of the month. I'm not going to reach that. Let's build up my subscriber base first, and then I'll revisit that in the future. But it will always be there for anyone that wants to support me here now and in the future. Anyway, thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that red button down below and share this around with everyone else. Give me a hand. Thanks. Have a great day.